Hey Bonnie, alright, so here is your past life spread, and I hope you don't mind that background noise. I need that for like white noise. So this past life spread, again, we're going to go to where you are, what you do with the majority of your time, an important day with the emotions and or the relationships and the emotions, another important day, the death and lesson learned. And so we'll get hints of time throughout. Remember to make connections where you can based off what we go over here in your current life, and I'll try to help however I can. I hope, by the way, I hope you had a really happy Halloween and a fun one. But anyway, let's start. So where we're beginning here, where we're going, is the island card, and I feel like where we're headed, this came as I was shuffling, was what felt like Scotland. And I know Scotland itself is not an island, but it is part of an island. Now, what I'm not 100% sure of, but what I got a little inkling of, was the idea of an island off of the coast of Scotland. Okay? So, where this island would be feels like it would be on the west, more so northwest. So, go ahead and see if there are any islands there. And you're going to want to look at places where there is a lot of swampiness, if they have swampiness. I think they have bogs and stuff like that, and that might be what this is. But for me, it's like easier to say swamp, but it might be bogs. I don't know if there's even a difference. This place feels perpetually foggy and gray. And if the sun is coming down, it feels like through a layer of cloud and fog and that kind of thing. Almost like it can be very bright there because the light is reflecting off of the fog over the ground kind of thing. And it feels like the clarity of the land only comes sparingly during certain seasons, but can be more or less anticipated to be like a specific time of the year. So the people that live here, your aspect, it feels like you and your people know the land, the lay of the land, the atmosphere, everything pretty well. And it also feels like we're looking at a time that it's not so much ancient. It feels like if like there's clothing, it's not like you're using what's it called? When it's basically you're not using like animal fur, like that kind of thing. It feels like there's clothing, and not manufactured clothing, not clothing you can buy. It feels like made clothing, but still like more I guess what we would consider modern clothing in the sense of like a shirt and trousers and that kind of thing, but not modern. So this is, I want to say, definitely before 16th, 17th century. I want to say it's before that. So I mean, even like maybe we'll just throw this into the 1500s or the 1400s kind of thing. Maybe 1600s. So between the 1400s and 1600s, that area, because it's really hard for me to like determine. It's like a feeling. Okay, so this is a male aspect. So already any connections you could be making, first of all, that male aspect is coming up for a reason. Do you showcase any kind of what we would consider in society, I guess, as masculine traits, right? This means like outgoingness or aggressiveness, not in a bad way, just, outspokenness, expressiveness, things that again are kind of determined to be more masculine traits. Or also the idea of playing with gender fluidity, sexuality in that way, exploring the kind of like the fluidity of sexuality in the way where your role in your sexuality, passive versus not passive kind of thing. So if you don't connect with that, that's fine, but that's what could be coming up as far as showing you the male aspect. It's a take charge feel. It's a bringing home the bread. Is that what the term is? Bringing the bread maker. The bread maker idea, the concept of being the breadwinner. Breadwinner. There you go. That is what the feeling is coming through as. So it links with this card here, which I'll get to in a second. But other connections you could be making could be Scotland, the idea of island of an island, living on an island that isn't necessarily tropical or Hawaii, you know what I mean? But like the idea of an island. What's the idea? What does it feel like? Have you ever felt either one, the pull of living on an island? So that is the idea of kind of like, I want to say isolation, but it's not necessarily bad. It can mean sovereignty. It can mean knowing every inch of your property, having pride of being a part of something that is like a small community, but knowing everyone. So this is not necessarily a bad thing where it's just like living on a boggy island where it's boring, and you know what I mean? So consider those things coming up as far as you perhaps yearning for community, commitment to a land, commitment to the land or property, knowing the land, knowing the lay of the land. If this is important to you in any aspect, then that would be a connection. The opposite would be the idea of you yearning to be free, to have the ability to roam. In your life, did you choose to live in a place where you can get out and about and see different terrains and different climates and different cultures or whatever it is without going too far, kind of thing? Or even if you can go far, it's because it's easy to go far. You know, like there's roadways versus an island. You're kind of, you know, you have to make special arrangements to get out of there, kind of deal. So there's this idea of ease of travel, fluid travel, again, freedom, independence, movement. If that is important to you, it's because we're looking at an aspect here that did not experience that really at all. It feels like he never left the island, or if he did, it was an arduous journey. You know what I mean? Especially during the time here where it's not like they had, you know, airplanes or anything like that. It was by ship kind of deal. Okay, another connection again is the Scottish, though, heritage, culture, landscape, terrain. If you're drawn to that kind of thing, the food, the music, that kind of thing. So keep that in mind. It could be the UK in general, but this specifically does feel more like Scottish. You know, I don't know if the Irish were making their way up there at this point. So you might want to look at you might want to Google the history of Ireland and Scotland. Is that what it is, or is it UK and I think it's the UK and Scotland. Yeah. So basically, just like what was happening on that island at the time and what peoples were north, and it feels more like northwest of that island, you know, because it could be not pure Scottish as we think about it. It could be even like the what we consider British, going up and having kingdoms up there or whatever they had back in the day. And it does feel like we're talking about kingdoms, so that came through obviously because I don't use that word, you know, naturally. So it feels like we're looking at a kingdom. So even on this island, it would be a kingdom. It doesn't have to be huge. It just means that there's someone who considers himself royal, and the land theirs. And it feels like, if anything, you worked on the land, and it may even be a sense, we're going to move here now, the labor card. It's a sense of servitude, but it doesn't necessarily mean you feel trapped, because it feels like you don't know any other life, so you've actually made do with this in the way where you can actually be content. So this would indicate if you have a personality that is able to be content in situations, see the silver lining in situations, even bring others to see this isn't so bad. We don't have it so bad. Look at this aspect, look at that aspect. Kind of like a peacemaker, either of your soul or kind of like a satisfier, being able to be satisfied in certain ways, where it's like almost like others might not be so easily satisfied. It does not mean lowering your standards. It's actually a strength, being able, again, to be content with various situations that others might be antsy in. So that would indicate a certain kind of patience. And it doesn't necessarily mean being patient with everything. It's a certain kind of patience, like a big picture patience. So if that is how you are in this life, it stems from here. On the opposite connection, it would be someone who is never satisfied, has a hard time being content, always looking for more, like the grass is greener kind of thing, which isn't bad. It just means that you're experiencing that aspect that you weren't experiencing here. So again, we're playing with this theme, I guess, of patience and contentedness. And I feel like it has specifically to do with the land. So if your environment is important to you, where you live, even like, this might sound really random and weird, but like, even like, let's say you're looking for a new place, or even like a new environment for something. It could be an office, it can be a home, it can be where you're going to take a class, I don't know. But if you find that what is part of what's important about this place is even how the sun and shadow play on the land or the building. I know that sounds really weird and random, but it's even that kind of thing that might be particular to you, that you're looking for about being satisfied with a place. So it's this idea of satisfaction, what you look for to be satisfied with. Again, it can be very little, or it can be you're very particular. So it's that direct or opposite thing. So keep that in mind. Now, the card also indicates, again, we're talking about servitude. So are you in a service industry? Do you lean towards service industry, or even service in the sense of your loved ones? Are you of service? Are you wanting to give them, always give them, you know, want to make, it could be as simple as wanting to make their favorite meals, to making, you know, if you know that some, let's say their favorite band or whatever is coming to town, you're going to try to get tickets. It's not so much the idea of gifting, but it's the idea of serving or catering to your loved ones, or even catering to people that are not your, like catering to people you know you shouldn't be catering to. And it's the kind of thing where it's like your boss, right? It's like, yeah, I mean, everyone's like, oh, we gotta please the boss. I get that, but you really don't. So it's about stepping outside of what should be, or what you think should be, or what others say should be, as far as pleasing people. And you need to kind of re-examine that and make sure that when you please people, it is coming from your heart, and it will not lead to resentment. This person, there wasn't resentment because it's the only life they knew. But you're in a life right now where you have many options and opportunities. So you know better. So remember that you do know better now, and to make sure you are pursuing a life where you are not going to ultimately always be the people pleaser. I understand there's this idea of like paying your dues, or like, you know, kissing ass every now and then or whatever, and that's fine and dandy, but make sure that you don't fall into a pattern of that, because he was patterned to do it, but it's because he didn't know any better. Make sure that, you know, you came back now because you can break patterns. You have the privilege and opportunity to break patterns that may be unhealthy to you, or that stem from here that may be unhealthy, in order to lead your very best life. And your very best life is not in the form of being a people pleaser. Now, I understand if you have children kind of thing, you have to take care of them. But there's a difference between taking care of your kid and then catering to them, so that you're taking away their own life lessons of learning patience and how to take care of themselves and how to self-soothe, that kind of thing. So just be wary that you're not people-pleasing people in the way that it takes away valuable lessons from themselves just because you feel urged to do so for whatever reason it may be, okay? It's kind of like being an enabler, but a different aspect of it. All right, so just keep that in mind. And this can also mean, like, let's say you have a young child. It can mean like as they grow up, you might come across this over the years. And it would be a really good idea just to kind of tuck this idea in the back of your mind to have, so that when you notice it might be happening, you could be like, ding, ding, ding. Oh, this is what, okay, I don't want to take away that lesson. I don't want to be an enabler. Let me kind of just step to the side. And it doesn't mean no support. It's just like support them, but don't do it for them kind of thing. So keep that in mind. And we're going to go ahead and move to the first important day. So on this day, we have Mother Nature, okay? And here we have family for the relationship, and we have neutral. So when I laid this down, first of all, the thing that came to mind was, now the Mother Nature card can be like, oh, it's a natural disaster, and usually it is. But for this, Mother Nature card is popping up due to the perpetual climate of this land. So it's just referring to the natural rhythm of the land being swampy or boggy or foggy or whatever it is. When something is one way for 99% of the time and that's all you know, then it's natural to you. Whereas if someone were to visit from a land of sunshine and desert, it's going to be like, whoa, this place is really, really weird. So that's what I feel like we're touching base on here, is it feels like we're dealing with an aspect of something being really weird and out of the ordinary. And I'm just trying to see what it is because it's not fully coming in the second. So let's just see what's going on. Okay, so we're having a perpetual day with neutral family member coming in. Okay, so what it feels like is it feels like we're getting newcomers, or there have been people from another place that are coming in. I don't know where they're coming from, but they're coming in and it feels like they're marrying into the royal whoever that you work for, that you are in servitude of. So it feels like family. I think it's the family card because it feels like you are connected to this family just like every other person in their servitude on this land is connected to them, in the sense where everybody comes to the wedding. Everybody is involved in understanding the union that is taking place, as far as like this means that there is an alliance being made. So it feels like trying to see how this is affecting you. Okay, so it's about you getting the information that this newcomer is kind of in shock of the way that this place is, the environment. So there's a shock aspect to the environment. Okay, so we're looking at culture shock. So you are being introduced to culture shock. The neutral card is you not knowing what to think about it, but the idea of there being culture shock is interesting, but again, is it useful? Okay, so let's see what's going on. So it's like there's something about a connection of useful information, of knowing what is useful and what to discard. That's what it feels like. Okay, so I feel like this might be playing into something going on in your life having to do with receiving information. And you need to consider whether it's useful to hold on to or whether you should discard it and not play into it, as far as what I feel like is playing into the drama unnecessarily. It's almost feeling like family drama. So it's like the kind of thing where it's like when there's family drama, let's say you're not in touch with certain family members because they are just like crazy or whatever, you know what I mean? So let's say you get information about them. Let's say, oh, they're coming to town. But they haven't told you they're coming to town. You hear it through the grapevine. Do you allow yourself to be bothered, annoyed, or hurt by this information? Or do you realize, wait, I don't really care. I don't want to see them. They bring drama. They're even causing drama now with this decision. I don't even care. I don't even want to deal with this. So it's about prioritizing the important thoughts and information over things that really don't matter. Seeing through the bullshit, cutting through the bullshit is what this is about, it feels like, in a weird roundabout way. And you make connections how you can with the information coming through here, as far as a newcomer, as far as culture shock, experiencing culture shock, and how to deal with it. It's about just kind of going with the flow of things and not getting held up on unimportant thoughts or things that really, really don't matter in the long run. Picking and choosing your battles. If anything is coming to mind when I'm talking about this, that is what then we are referring to. If nothing comes to mind, that is okay. It could be something maybe coming up soon, so tuck it in the back of your mind for when that comes. But that's what we're dealing with here, is make sure you are picking and choosing your battles and prioritizing correctly. Make sure you're not clinging on to information that doesn't suit you. This also goes for information like when you're in a relationship and you get in a fight, women more than men, everyone can do this, but women more than men tend to collect the data and store it in their brains because our brains work different. And when the argument comes up, we throw everything at them from the beginning of time. And that's not healthy and that's not good. It's rather be present in the relationship and work on the present issue rather than trying to win your case with information that should have been discarded in the past. Why hold on to it? That kind of thing. So again, make sure that you don't need to retain information to use later. You don't need information that's going to be unhealthy or that clutters your mind. Let go of it. Just kind of like see the big picture of when you learn something about something, what does it really mean? How does it really affect you? Does it really affect you? Are you just letting it affect you, or letting it affect you in a way that your past or younger self would have been affected in a more, agitated way than who you are today? You're always growing and evolving and maturing. Remember that when you get certain pieces of information, and again, picking and choosing those battles. So keep that in mind. Keep making connections when you can, or however you can, to this, and we're going to move on. So this right here, this card is the graduation card. So the graduation card can be graduation in work, in school, graduation of the mind, graduation of the physicality, spirituality, The relationship involved here is friends. And the feeling here is, let's turn that around, distant, or like removed. Kind of like, it's interesting because you have these two emotions here where it's neutral, and this is like removed, which can be, emotionally removed, can be a neutrality in itself. And sometimes that doesn't sound good to be removed and distant, but other times what it can be referring to and what it feels like it's referring to here is putting up healthy boundaries. So let's look and see what's happening here. So what it feels like is this graduation card is referring to your work status. You are a hard worker and you are promoted, you are moving up. However that means to move up in this way, here in this time period, in this region. The friends card is coming in because you are going to lose some friends. People that you work side by side with that you're no longer going to see daily are jealous of you and envious because you're moving up, and they wish they can move up, because when you move up, that means you're closer to it feels like you're actually closer in geographically to the royal family, to the house, to the finery, to more aesthetic pleasures. And the friends card is coming up because again, when you move up in life, a lot of times you do leave people behind, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be because they're not working hard and they don't have ambitions to move up too. So let's say you do get a promotion in your current life that takes you to another state, or that makes it so you're traveling all the time, and that kind of thing. And that means you're not, let's say, working side by side with a colleague that you were in a cubicle with before. It's very likely that you can lose touch, despite, Facebook and blah, blah, blah. It's the idea of allowing the natural evolution of your life to occur. Some people are not meant to be side by side with us all our lives. And this goes the other way too, where if you see someone moving up at a certain time in their life, you may feel jealous or envious, and that's okay. It just means it's not your time at that moment. It doesn't mean it's not your time ever. So always come back to your present moment and use it as motivation or encouragement to work harder or different or whatever, if that's the case. But in this case, you could be connecting to you right now where it kind of feels like if it's you and you find people fall to the wayside or they change their attitudes, you need to not allow that prospect to hold you back. Don't allow others to hold you back. If anything, use what is happening for you in a good way. Let's say you are being promoted. See that as possibly where they can look at you and aspire, it's like aspiring, like showing them how it's done. Like, hey, I'm working hard and I'm moving up. Take this as a way for you to be motivated and inspired yourself to do the same. People can learn lessons from you, even though you might lose them along the way. Ultimately, they might be learning a lesson from you by watching you, even if they don't know it consciously. So again, it's very important, it feels like, to be present and to continue to do the work that you're doing, you know, as long as it feels good and healthy, that kind of thing. But keep pushing forward and don't hold yourself back because let's say you might miss someone when you realize you're not going to see them, or, you know, or you feel sorry for them or you feel bad. Never hold yourself back because of someone else in that way. Because not only are you going to lose out on so many benefits, but that person, again, you're taking away their lessons potentially. Just like up here we were talking about making sure you're not being a people pleaser. I guess it's kind of the same message. So that's the theme we're looking at here, is making sure you're not doing certain things or not doing certain things in a way where it might affect another person's lesson just because you might feel bad or you might feel responsible or something like that. So it's like the idea of learning to shed the idea that you are responsible for other people's happiness or other people's wealth or other people's whatever gains, you know, whatever it is in life, and focus on yourself in that way. That's not selfish. Again, it'd be more selfish if you don't move with the momentum of your life, because it's moving in that way for a reason, for you to learn and very, very possibly for others to learn from. So just keep moving with the momentum and the flow of where it goes. Don't let others hold you back in that way, whether it's professionally, romantically, whatever. There's so many ways. So just be aware of it. And I feel like that's why we're looking at this reading, is so that you can just be aware of it if it's occurring or if it's about to occur, kind of thing. So let's go ahead and move to the Death card. Keep making connections here where you can. Yeah, let me just touch base real quick again on this. Is we were talking about, I went to this one first. It's the, again, creating healthy boundaries. Remember that. Creating healthy boundaries and speaking about all this stuff, people pleasing, blah, blah, blah. Creating healthy boundaries. Okay. Now the Death card here is a natural death. So I'm trying to see what's going on. So at this point, you've moved up, 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 up. And there's something about your nature of this man here where they're allowing him closer and closer into the family, to the royal family, to the house, because there's something, it's not so much of him being like an obedient servant. It's more about his nature of being unobtrusive and gentle and not desperate. Yeah. So there's this thing about this aspect of you here that is not desperate in the way that others who serve alongside him, from when he was like, it feels like was actually working on the land at one point. And there's this air, this feeling of like, they can sense when someone is like desperate to move up and desperate to gain respect or gain recognition. And he has an air, because he's content with what he has, there's no desperation about him. And they noticed that, rather than someone who would just like work hard, and look what I can do, look what I can do. It's so in their face, it looks so desperate. They don't want that around them all the time, even if they do work hard, you know what I mean? Whereas this guy, the lack of desperation emotes a gentleness about him that is calming and soothing, and something that the family, this royal whatever, wants or prefers to have around them. Because there's enough people wanting, you know, clamoring to be near them and get things from them, right? Kind of like celebrities, you know? They want people who are not desperate to be near them. And so it's in the contented nature and being present with the work and his life and being content that he was naturally promoted and naturally brought closer to them. So in that way, what I'm getting to with the Death is, by this time, it feels like he actually has quarters in the house, like his own quarters, almost like he was promoted to the main, I don't know if they call them butler, but like the main, we'll say butler, like he was like the head butler, you know, for lack of better terms. And in being the head butler, he again had like special quarters. So it feels like he dies in the quarters with the actual royal doctor taking care of him. So it feels like what actually ended up killing him, it's age. Just, you know, getting old, getting tired and fatigued, not being able to do all the work he can do, but the family recognizing that and respecting him and understanding that. And so his death was respected and gentle and there was nothing wrong with it. It was just age and naturalness. And there's a weird pleasantness to it. It's hard to like kind of explain. So you can make connections with that however you can, but I feel like rather than the physical aspect of connections, it's more about the connections coming back to this about being content, finding contentedness in the present moment with what you have and who you are. It's not to say don't have ambition, but it is to say hold back a notch if it gets to the level of showing desperation, and reevaluate what is going on within you if you feel that bubble of desperation arise in you, because we're all human, we've had it before, and see where it's coming from and try to understand it so that you can more or less, I want to say, like control it or understand it so it's not so apparent, or so it's not there anymore, that kind of thing. And you'll see that that is what will be recognized, is the lack of desperation and the contentedness, while also you're allowed to have ambition in that without the desperation, if that makes sense. I'm not saying you are desperate. I'm just saying, you know, be aware of it, that it's coming up for a reason. Why? Maybe there's someone in your life where you're seeing that. You know, maybe it's someone who you can see is desperate towards you in a way. Do you know what I mean? So just see about where that theme fits in your life. Now, the lesson is, it works in beautifully with everything, and this is the work all day, work all night kind of card, the hard work lesson, and you learned it so beautifully because you worked so hard, but again, you didn't feel pressured, you felt content in the work. There was a rhythm to it. There was a rhythm and a contentedness, and that, I feel like this lesson is coming up to kind of show you that's the kind of work in life you should strive for. It's not about the work, it's about what the feeling of doing the work and what the feeling of the work in the present moment brings you. That's important. So remember, the work you do, it shouldn't run you ragged. It should feel like, yeah, it could be like tiring and exhausting, and all consuming, quite frankly, but it doesn't mean it doesn't mean you won't like it. It doesn't mean it's not good or unhealthy, as long as it's put into certain parameters, as long, again, as you can be content and you can appreciate it in a present moment kind of way without always striving to get super ahead in that, you know, just kind of that desperate way where you can't enjoy your life until you get what you want, you know, that kind of thing. But keep making connections with the working hard card. And so, yeah, so anyway, there is your past life reading. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make some connections here with the themes we went over and stuff. And thanks for letting me read you.